Alright, first thing we're going to do with this second video is we're going to add some WCS coordinates. WCS stands for World Coordinate System, and adding these to this image now, what that will allow us to do is later on annotate the image. Quite simple to do, just go to the script here. Under script you find image analysis, image solver, do a search, type in M106 here, search for that, and click OK. This will now add, hopefully, if it solves the image, the WCS coordinates to the image. It will build them into the actual XISF file, so we can use these later to add annotations to our image. That's added successfully, so we can actually remove this image here, remove this image here, and just do a file save. So what we'll do now is try and sort out this rather horrible blotchy background we've ended up with. And the first thing we'll do is run the background neutralization process, but before we can do that we need to identify some preview areas without stars. What I'm going to do is use multiple previews and then use the preview aggregator script to combine them into one. So we're just going to pick some areas here. Let's have a look around, see what we've got. This there, that'll do. Go over here. Let's see, preview buttons, this button here by the way that I'm clicking. It just allows us to put lots of previews. Is that enough? Let's just do one more. So there we've got some previews of all the noise on our screen. So we now go to Script, Utilities, and Preview Aggregator. Click OK on that, and that gives us an aggregated set of previews which we can use in our background neutralization process. Now we load the background neutralization process, which is in process, all processes background neutralization. And under the reference image we choose the aggregated one, which remember is an aggregation of all these previews that we did. And then we drag the little triangle over the image. Like that. Next up is the color calibration process. So first thing, close background neutralization, we're done with that. Now we'll load the color calibration process, just there, and leave the reference image blank. So we're going to use the whole image as our white reference. Background image will be aggregated. I've left structure detection on. Now when you have an image like this can be open to a bit of experimentation and personal taste, but I've changed structure layers to 7 and noise layers to 3. It seemed to look okay, so let's just, with those settings, let's just drag the triangle over the image and see what we come out with. Okay, so there's a calibrated image. It's made white things white, and it looks like it's done something with the background. So we'll close that down now, and then we'll remove our temporary stretch and reapply our stretch and see what we can see now. Right, looking a lot better. The actual redness that was in the image has dropped off quite considerably. So I'm going to leave that at that. I'm going to remove all the previews that we put on there. So go under Preview, delete all. That removes all those little preview screens. And the aggregated image that we created earlier, that can go too. And we'll save that. Now one thing I like to do when I'm playing with an image like this where there's lots of reds or strange colours is I like to take a look at the histogram just to see what's going on with it. So if we go to Processes, All Processes and Histogram Transformation, you can see this is your histogram. You can see it's pretty much all white, which tells me that all these colours, even though there's still some red in here, all these colours are pretty much lined up okay. it starts off set on RGBK, but if we click on the red, for example, and click this middle slider and drag it, you can see how the red moves out. And if I put on the RealTime Preview, you can see how the red's coming out like that. Now sometimes you get images where the red is like that, in which case you can play about and move it back like that to try and balance the red, green and blue. But yeah, I just sort of add that bit in to show you how I just check the colour balance using the histogram before I move on any further. So we'll just close these two boxes down. Everything looks okay. Next part we do before we go on to a stretch, proper stretch, is where we turn the image from linear to non-linear, is background noise reduction. So if we look at the image here, you can see this is obviously an image of what we've got to so far. We need to mask off the sections that we don't want to affect from now on with our, what we're doing with the noise reduction. So we're going to need to mask off this galaxy, these stars, this galaxy here. So the first thing we need to do is create a mask. So step one is I click this button here. What this does is it extracts the likeness, in other words a black and white, unstretched image of this image here. But it's not been stretched, so what we need to do is put a stretch on that. So we go process, this time screen transfer function, okay, and then histogram transformation, this, and then using the screen transfer function, click this sort of nuclear button here, and that will apply a stretch to this image. What we do now is we turn on this track view button, so now it's tracking the likeness image. Drag that little triangle down onto the bar just there and hit our RealTime Preview button. You can see it's totally white. It's because it's been stretched twice, once in here and once when we dragged it here. So click that button there to remove the first stretch, and we can shut down the screen transfer function. What we need to try and do now is make sure that everything that we want to mask is white and everything that we don't want to mask is black. Now if you look carefully at this image, you can see the redness that we have on the image is also slightly white, so we need to try and flatten or crush the image using our histogram transformation tool so that we are cancelling out that whiteness so it just goes black. So if I click in this window here with my left click, just scroll back with my wheel, just keep going here, you'll see that the black and white histogram appears. What we need to do is move these two sliders until we get the desired effect in the RealTime Preview just here. So I'm just going to drag that across a little bit and then move this left slider to the right. You see how it's going black on what we want to actually mask? But I'm having to be very careful with the actual M106 Galaxy because it's taking out information that we don't want to disturb. See, it's getting dimmer around the edges here. We just move that back slightly. Let's have a go on that one there, see what we can do. And just move that slightly to the right. And that it is very sensitive, but we'll leave it as that for our mask. What we do now is shut down our RealTime Preview and then drag this triangle over the top of this box here, which is our mask. And there's our completed mask. And now we can close down Histogram Transformation. We're done with that. Now what we do, you see this tab on the left hand side here? We drag this tab to the side of our main image, just there. Let go and minimize that. Don't close this because we need to use this as our mask. And you can see here with the mask applied, everything is that is red is protected. Everything that is white is not protected. Now we want to work on the background, so we need to reverse or inverse this mask. Invert is a technical term here. So we invert the mask. Now you can see we are protecting the red areas. And click on mask once more and click show mask. That hides what we're masking, or it hides our mask. Now we can move on to actual noise reduction, which is done using a process, multi-scale linear transform, one there. And what we do is we'll open a preview of our background, so we can work on the preview first, because otherwise we're just going to waste time, because it'll take longer to run the process on the whole image. So we work on a preview first to make sure we're doing okay. Open up RealTime Preview. That's now looking at the noise in the background. And what we do is we apply parameters to each of these 3 or 4 layers to try and reduce the background noise. So tick the noise reduction on the first layer. I'm not going to use 1. I'm going to drop that down to about 30. Do a couple of iterations. You can see here this is spinning. This is our real-time preview is working it out, what to show us. I'm just going to whiz down through here, turn on the noise reduction on layer 2, drop that down to 2, drop that down to 30 again, give it a couple of iterations, and the same on 4, but on layer 4 we'll give it 1. The amount will be 30, and 1 iteration, 2 iterations, sorry. And this is now calculating to show us what we're doing to the image with the real-time preview. Now you can't actually see, I don't think you'll actually see this on YouTube, but if I click this circular button here in and out, you can see the changes. Well, I can see the changes. The noise is actually looking less sharp, as it were. Now what you've got to be careful of is you unsharpen your whole image. It's making a little bit of difference, but I think I can push it a little bit further. So on this layer here, I'm just going to push that up to 40, let that figure itself out. Yeah, and that's looking a lot, the noise is looking a lot more reduced here in the real-time preview. So what we'll do now, as we've got these settings here, shut the real-time preview down, go to our main image and drag the small triangle over our main image. This will now apply these settings to this image. So those settings have been applied. Now the next thing we want to do, that was on the RGBK components. What we'll do now is we'll apply it to the chrominance. Okay, and what we need to do is just reset everything, change the target to chrominance, go back to our preview, change to 7 layers, and just turn noise reduction on at its default setting for the first 4 layers. Like that. We've got our preview here. We'll drag this over the preview and see what happens. So what this has done is what it's trying to do is make an attempt at removing the colour noise from the background, and it has done it. You just won't see it properly on YouTube, I don't think. So we go back to our original image and drag the triangle as before over the original image. And we'll close down our noise reduction, multi-scale linear transform, we'll close that box down. Now I have to say that when you're doing these steps on your own images, a lot of the settings we use, or you will use, will be different to mine, because images are different. So you need to experiment around to see which is best for you. And my settings may not work for you, and your settings probably won't work for me. One thing I'm going to do here, I can still see some red on these areas. So what I'm going to do, we've still got the mask on. I'm going to go to the preview window, just there. And I'm going to go to Curves Transformation. And in Curves Transformation, click the tick box here. Make sure this S here is selected and your real-time preview is on. Get hold of this line here, just drag it down. What that will do is it will remove the redness from the background. So just shut that down, drag this over our preview. Now you see this button here, click that. You can see the redness has now gone out of the background. You've got to be a little bit careful though doing this, but it seems to have removed the redness. Go back to our main image and drag the triangle over that. Here we go. It's made a pretty good job of removing the red that was there. Shut down Curves Transformation. Remove the preview. And remove the mask. And do a file save. So that's done for this video. In this video, as you saw, we've applied coordinates to the image and we've hopefully fixed up the background so it doesn't look so bad when we start giving it a final stretch, turning it from linear to non-linear, and after that then we'll go on and we'll add colour and make it look interesting, etc. So that's it for this one, and I'll be back in part 3.